It's good to be with you tonight. As we talk about hope, I want to really look at a whole chapter in the Gospel of John, chapter 11. But I've chosen one verse that is at the heart of the story. Martha said to Jesus, "If you had been here, this would not have happened." Many of you are familiar with Nadia Bolz-Weber. Before she became a minister, she dealt with her own problems of addiction. And so when she went into ministry, she was pastor of a unique church in Denver, the Church of the Sinners and Saints. She's resigned from that church and she does a lot of speaking, an excellent speaker, but somebody who knows what it is to deal with the difficulties of life. In talking about herself, she's something has to die in us in order for something to live. I love the 11th chapter of John because of all the stories that are told in the four Gospels, this is the most developed, and this has so many tangents to it. Word came to Jesus from Mary and Martha, "The one whom you love, Lazarus, our brother, is deathly ill, and we want for you to come." They lived in the small village of Bethany. It was a place where Jesus had visited many times. He knew the family, and he had a close relationship with them. "Jesus, our brother, is about to die, and we need for you to come." What did Jesus do? Well, he did nothing. I suppose it would have been all right or much better if he had said to Mary and Martha, "You don't understand. I will be there when I can, but I have a lot of people I have to feed. You don't understand. I will come when I am able to get there, but there are people who are lying by all kinds of pools who need to be healed. There are people that need to know what it is to follow me and to have faith. I will be there as soon as I can." But the fact is that Jesus wasn't busy at all. The disciples said, "Don't you think we ought to go to Bethany to be with Mary and Martha and with Lazarus?" And Jesus said, "Well, I'm waiting because I want you to see what it means for me to be glorified." Finally, he goes to that little village of Bethany. Martha, who is the more outspoken of the sisters, meets him on the way and says, "Lord, if you had been here, none of this would have happened." At that point, Lazarus had died. What Jesus said next is, for me, maybe the most powerful "I am" statement that Jesus makes in the whole Gospel of John. He looks at Martha and he says, "I am the resurrection and the life." Nadia Bolz-Weber said, something has to die in order for something new to live. And this whole story is about dying and living. Jesus stands outside the tomb where Lazarus has been buried. 4 days. The Jews had a belief that maybe within 3 days it was possible that somebody could come back, but not after the 3rd day. On the 4th day, he called Lazarus, and out came Lazarus, still bound in the clothes in which he had been buried, the cloth wrapped around him, stumbling out of the tomb. Death and life. In a way, you and I are looking at that tomb, and what we are understanding is this. Lazarus is called out of the tomb and given more days to live. But that very act of calling Lazarus out of the tomb sealed the fate of Jesus. Soon, he would be in the tomb, and he would be the one who is dead. Death and life. I am the resurrection and the life. Do you believe that? There were all kinds of people that had gathered to comfort Mary and Martha at the death of Lazarus. Remember Bethany? Remember Bethany from the 19th chapter of the Gospel of Luke? Bethany, that little city along with Bethphage, that little village where Jesus had his triumphal entry. It was just a couple of miles from Jerusalem. This was the same Bethany. Jesus was close to Jerusalem. In fact, after the 12th chapter, where the resuscitation of Lazarus is celebrated, and Mary anoints the feet of Jesus with that precious oil, we enter the final discourse of Jesus, where Jesus tells his disciples, something has to die in order for you to live. I am going to die, but please know that there will be one with you who will give you comfort and who will give you peace. There are 2 times in the Gospels in which we are told Jesus wept. One was the 19th chapter of Luke, after he had that so-called triumphal entry from Bethany and Bethphage. He looked out over the city of Jerusalem and he wept. If you had only known the things that make for peace, but you rejected it. And here in the 11th chapter of John, Jesus weeps. Why does he weep? Does he weep because Lazarus has died? I don't believe so. Jesus knew he could bring Lazarus back to life. Do you know what he wept? What he wept at? The same thing he wept at when he looked at the city of Jerusalem and said, if you had only known me and what I could do to make for peace. He was surrounded at the tomb of Lazarus by all of these Jewish leaders that had come from Jerusalem to comfort Mary and Martha. And they said, he's not the Messiah. You know, you and I can just get away with excusing even the most wonderful thing that happens in our lives. Can't you imagine these Jewish leaders saying, this is just a trick? He really wasn't dead. This was just a way for Jesus to get publicity. We've got to do away with him. And the sad part is that even though they heard the words, I am the resurrection and the life, they really never understood what those words meant. I've sometimes wondered, Jesus called Lazarus out of the tomb and gave him, I don't know how much longer he lived, but really it's not in life. It's the life that we have in the years that we have. And Jesus called him out of the tomb. And Jesus, in effect, was saying, I'll be in that tomb. And that's why we look at the life of Jesus. And we don't say it's the number of years that anybody has. We say it is the life in the years that God has given us. I am the resurrection and the life. Whatever amount of years, whatever amount of time that God gives you and me, we don't have to be afraid. He's the resurrection. And as long as our feet are planted in the soil of this life, He is our life. When we feel battered and buffeted and broken by life, we don't need to stay there. Nadia Bolz-Weber said, in order for something to live, something must die. And the time we have, thank God, thank God, the time we have, Jesus is the resurrection and the life. Amen.